Oh no. The light is really reflecting on that. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Welcome to video 3 in the job hunting series. I'm so excited that you joined me for the third video. I really hope that you enjoyed the first two, and we will definitely get into our third thing, which is building teaching portfolios. Now, before I start talking about building teaching portfolios, if you have not already done so, please subscribe to my channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please make sure you do that. And if you like this video, please make sure you click like. If you would like to know additional information about this week's topic, you can always check out my blog at xjonespennies.blogspot.com. And if you would like to contact me, you can contact me via my website at xjonesconsulting.weebly.com. Now, we are moving on to today's topic. So just like I said, this is video 3. You have found the teaching position that you want. You're in love. You really want this particular position. You have secured that interview. You're ready to go. And now you're like, what do I bring into this interview so I can make sure I land this position? So I'm just going to go over a few things that you need to include in a teaching portfolio, because I know, as I have mentioned, I have a special guest here. My teaching portfolio from undergrad, which is huge, 13 years old and huge. I know that many of us have these at home. However, I am a big proponent of the mini portfolio. Just something that is going to help you quickly just provide a nice quick snapshot of what you can do, and just demonstrate your ability. Because realistically, this is a lot to look at. This is a lot to look at, and people aren't necessarily going to have that amount of time, particularly if you're doing something like, let's say, at a hiring event where it's lots of people there and they're interviewing and hiring a lot of people on the spot. They don't necessarily have time to look through something like this. And if you're at an interview, it's much more difficult to talk about a larger piece than it is a shorter piece, especially if they are like very short, impactful ones. So these are the things that I think you should include in your mini portfolio. Now, the first few are going to be basics. So you need to include that cover letter. Make sure you just have that brief letter. It introduces yourself, why you're interested in the particular position that you're applying for. And if it is a general thing, you can be general, an education position or an instructional coaching position. You can use a very general term there. You need to cover your educational background, and you need to cover your professional background. So those are the 3 biggies that you must cover in a cover letter. Make sure you have those in. Next thing, include your resume. So resumes, one of the biggest things in resumes is quantifying information. So make sure everything can be quantified. Make sure you say, my students experience this percentage of growth on a particular exam. Maybe the teachers with whom I worked, they experienced their students experienced a growth of this percent. But just make sure you can quantify everything. I work with this many teachers. I had this many students. Everything is quantifiable now, so make sure you can quantify that. And number 3, make sure you have your philosophy of education. So as educators, it's extremely important that we're able to articulate why we're doing the work that we're doing. And we all have different philosophies of education. That's okay. But you need to be able to say, this is why I'm here. This is why I want to work with your school. This is why this work is really important to me. This is what drove me to go to school. And I really want to be able to live this out through your organization, okay? A philosophy of ed doesn't really need to be longer than maybe a page, 3/4 of a page, but make sure it's something that's included so you can leave a little piece of yourself as you're leaving the interview. The 4th thing, you need to illustrate some sort of data. So make sure you try to include maybe some charts or some graphs that illustrate this percentage of students showed growth compared to the district, compared to the rest of the school. This percentage of our school was able to implement this with this much fidelity in comparison to the rest of the other schools. Data is everywhere. You can access it. Most of us have access to it at work anyway. Sometimes you can just Go and look up your state. Data is everywhere, and it is open for everyone to look at and to view. So if you haven't really started paying attention to your school's data or just your personal data, make sure you're keeping a track of that data. So if you're a student teacher or something like that, make sure you're actually tracking where your students are going with assessments in comparison to the beginning of the class, maybe to the end, but always make sure you have some sort of quantifiable data that you can actually illustrate. And the next thing, make sure you include a curriculum map and a lesson plan that is directly related to that curriculum map. A curriculum map shows your thinking process. It shows how you work as an instructor. So if I'm looking at one, I can tell how you're scaffolding. I can tell how you're unpacking standards. Just looking at the types of assessments that you've decided to create or use for that particular unit, looking at the types of text that you've decided to use or materials you've decided to use. Those are all things that communicate a lot to me about just your level of expertise as an instructor. And also a lesson plan directly related to that unit, because it's also going to give me a snapshot of how that unit will play out. So how did you really scaffold in the class? How did you really identify those objectives and those skills that the students needed to master? And even if you're moving to another level, it's still important to include things like that, because it shows your thought process. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, but a unit map really shows how you're breaking things down and how conscientious you are as you're doing that. Now, transitioning over, I do have my professional portfolio that I made when I was an undergrad. There are definitely some don'ts that I have in there, some things that it's just kind of like, this is great information. However, I really don't need this information right at this moment. Or it's really great information that can be included in your application, but I don't necessarily need it at an interview. So just go ahead and take a break with me, and I'm going to go and walk through my portfolio, so just so we can point out some things that I thought were really cool, then maybe you should still continue using, and then some things that were not so cool we don't necessarily need to include. Now, the first thing that I noticed is I have this organized by standard, and at this point I would not recommend you organize something by standard, but instead organize it by the requirements that are listed in the job description itself, because the employer is going to be much more specific about what they're looking for in that description. Now, as I continue moving on, I would like to point out this listing here. So like I have my course listing here. This is something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend unless perhaps you're a newer teacher. Evaluations are also something that you may want to add in. However, I know many people require those with the application. And then another thing that I do want to point out is the samples of writing. Unless you are doing something that requires you to write, you don't really need to include a sample of your writing. Thanks for looking through my teaching portfolio along with me. My last piece of advice is to make sure that these mini portfolios, which is why I love the mini portfolio, you make sure you have enough copies for people to take. Because again, you're leaving a little bit of something. Okay, it's more than just a resume. It's more than just a cover letter. So they should be something that are quick, compact, to the point, and something that people can take with them. So to just recap everything again, things that you should include in those little mini portfolios that you're going to take with you on your interview. Number one, make sure you have your cover letter. You definitely need to include a cover letter. Number two, make sure you have your resume, okay? Make sure it's quantifiable data on there. Number three, make sure you have your philosophy of education. Number four, make sure you have some sort of illustration of your data, charts, graphs. Those things are always amazing to include. Number five, make sure you have a unit map and a lesson plan that directly correlates to that unit map. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you would like to know any additional information about this particular video, you can check out the blog. Again, my blog is at xjonespennies.blogspot.com. If you're interested in contacting me, you can contact me via my website at xjonesconsulting.weebly.com. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe. If you like this video, make sure you click like, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week where we talk about philosophies of education. How in the world do we write them? Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, Interested in learning more or having me work with your school or organization? See the details section below for contact information. Again, thanks for watching.